Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to episode 189 of Sticks in the Six podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Forbes, here with my co host, Peter Baracchini, and we are proud members of the Hockey Podcast Network, brought to you by DraftKings, SeatGeek, No Name Hockey, BioSteel, and of course, the fine folks at the Indie Ale House. And Peter, another afternoon episode getting into it right before the Four Nations face-off kicks off this evening. Pretty pumped to see some best on best hockey. But before we get into all the fun hockey talk, how you doing this week, buddy?
Yes, so there's like a lot of conflicting views about this tournament, but we'll get into that later on. But yeah, it is nice to see some best on best. I think aside from the World Hockey Championships, we really haven't had this kind of massive appeal of all the star players coming together and going up against each other. And hopefully that's going to be the case next year at the Olympics. But yeah, definitely excited to see some of this kind of best on best. I mean, the NHL international tournament format, whatever they're going to call it. But yeah, this is definitely going to be an interesting series that we're going to be witnessing to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I was mentioning to you off air before we kicked it off here. This is my MJ flu game. I know I've had a couple of those those nights, but we talked last week. I was just getting over some sickness in the Forbes household. Well, it came back twofold and kicked our ass one more time. Wiped me out for 2 days. No eating, no walking. I couldn't move. I was immobilized. My leg was in pain. My
it's like what are those
joints
knockout
were aching.
punches?
Man, I don't know if it's that I'm quickly approaching 40 here or what, but I still like to think like 30. I'll be 37 in August. I don't even know when my birthday is. Look at this.
That's what the sickness does to you.
Yeah. I'll be 37 in August, but it's crazy. I like to think I'm in my late 30s, but the sicknesses that are coming into this household now like to remind me that I'm slowly getting older here.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
you don't want to think about that, but
that's right.
Yeah.
The last couple of days though, I'm up. I'm moving around. I'm obviously talking. I'm back. I'm back on the air with you. Excited to talk some hockey, some Four Nations face off. Obviously, the Leafs have 3 strong representatives on 3 very strong teams. And but before we get into all that that fun stuff, as we look forward to some best on best, again we start this episode with some not even sad news, more disappointing news. Obviously, here if you're in tune with the hockey world and the CHL and the OHL and what's been going on lately. Here in town, and the London Knights, they earlier this season they went out and they acquired defenseman Cam Allen, Washington Capitals 5th round pick, and the other night he at about 3:24 a.m. His vehicle was located, still running. 1 car collision. Passenger was injured in the passenger side. Anyways, he was located and eventually arrested at a local residence and nearby, and he had been under the influence. He's being charged with multiple charges, including leaving the scene, blood alcohol over 0 under the age of 20, a novice driver under the age of 20, obviously driving under the influence. And what's even more disappointing in all of this is that night they had a game. The London Knights had a game in town, and the half of the 50-50 that goes to local charities and whatnot was being given to MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And then this happened following the game. And to kind of go off of that, I mean, obviously the conversation this season with you and I and a lot of people has been around surrounding the Goudreau brothers and what happened to them in the off season and the disappointment and kind of the question mark around the decision making of some of these people. I'm going to say people because it's not just players. It's obviously the guy who did hit the Goudreau brothers and killed the Goudreau brothers. He made a poor decision as well to get behind the wheel. But to have it happen on a night where you're representing MAD and trying to raise awareness to not being that person who gets behind the wheel after drinking, was that much more disappointing. So in saying that, Cam Allen has been suspended indefinitely by the OHL. The London Knights have declined interview. That said, general manager Mark Hunter did come out and say like they will cooperate with the OHL. The hope is that this is coming from me, but the hope is that we're a podcast that's always been about second chances. In saying that there needs to be repercussions, I do hope that they find a way to fulfill repercussions, but at the same time, not absolutely disable this kid's future. Mm-hmm. So give him, it's fortunate. It's fortunate that the person who was injured, they were transported to hospital. It was minor injuries. There was nothing serious. It could have been a hell of a lot worse. They are fortunate that it was just a one-car collision. It could have been a hell of a lot worse. The hope is that Cam can take from this what needs to be taught, what needs to be learned, and can further educate other players in that position. Let's face it, this kid's a 20-year-old kid. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to call it a mistake. It was a poor decision. But you don't want to ruin somebody's future based solely on a poor decision, given that thankfully the outcome wasn't as severe as it could have been. Mm-hmm. Had it been more severe, I think this would be a completely different conversation, because there is an accountability that needs to be had. And we're seeing a little bit of lack thereof in the Goudreau case, which is a conversation for another day. But the hope is that there's a silver lining that can come from this whole situation. Regardless, disappointing. The OHL is going to act accordingly. There have been previous players that have gone through this. The other two of which I believe saw between a 5 and 8 game suspension. But seeing that there is a court date and that there are extra charges on this, likelihood is going to be that I believe his court date is in March. So likelihood is that he's going to miss most of the remainder of the season. And, we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, I agree with you in the sense that, thankfully that this wasn't a serious fatality or an incident that happened with the Goudreaus. But on the other hand, we vehemently condemned the actions of that driver that hit the Goudreau brothers. And I get that, again, he's young, it was a poor decision, but at the same time, we shouldn't mitigate the seriousness and the severity of what this could have caused. Like you said, it could have been very serious, and we should take it as if it could have been very serious. I mean, there have been countless times where there are like so many like don't drink and drive commercials. The same with the commercials about smoking weed and getting behind the wheel, driving impaired. There are a lot of outlets and a lot of advertisements out there that shows you the dangers of drinking and driving, no matter how old or how young you are, that you shouldn't get behind the wheel. And it really shouldn't be one of those decisions that you make, because it could end up being one that could change your life forever. I understand about the whole second chances thing, but this could be a decision that could affect his future and change the outcome for some time. I mean, he was drafted by the Washington Capitals. What's this going to happen in the future with him and possible, contract scenario? What's this going to say about his character if the NHL team is going to be like, oh, obviously the NHL team has to be in the loop about this, but it comes to a point where do we draw the line about having to know about something like this where you should know that it's going to be the wrong decision to do because of what's happened with the Goudreau brothers, because of the fact that, and I really hate the fact that this was on Mothers Against Drunk Driving Night, and you happen to go out post-game, drink and drive, which is an organization that prevents that. I mean, I don't know what was going inside his head at that point, but you just understand what that organization is all about. We should all know what that organization is about. And then you go against what your team and what the organization has done to try and get that message out there, with you as a player breaking all the rules of what they stand for and what the team basically stands for. I understand that he's 20 years old, but it's one of those mistakes where he should know that it's the wrong one to do, and he shouldn't have gotten behind the wheel at all.
Yeah, I think I should have mentioned too that Washington did mention that they are, staying close to the investigation, and they'll kind of look at things as they see fit. In reality, I could see them kind of releasing him based on just unsureness of what his future will hold.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, I think this kid's going to go through some character building. He's going to have to learn. He's going to have to take some steps to get back on track. And I do think that there's some recency bias that does affect our opinion on this as well, because obviously had the Goudreaus not been hit by a drunk driver this past offseason, we probably wouldn't be focusing it as harshly on him, knowing that the outcome wasn't the same. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I'm not in no way am I condoning it.
Or trying to minimize what.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No.
The fact is,
fair,
he made a poor decision. He got behind the wheel after having too many drinks. And he, again, in Ontario, the law being at the age of 20, you are supposed to have a blood alcohol level of 0.
Zero tolerance, yeah.
There was, obviously he was not at that point. So anyways, like I said, I hate starting off episodes like that. That said, we still need to talk about it. It's still in the news. It's still headlines. We want to make sure our listeners are informed. So we hope that Cam Allen gets the help that he needs. Mm-hmm. We hope that he can take the right steps in finding his way back on track to not further damage his career. Mm-hmm. That said, if you're ever out there, call. There's so many apps now that you can call, that you can download, that you can. There's ways around getting behind the wheel.
Cabs, Ubers, Lyfts.
Yeah,
you name it.
Find a way to do it. Find a way to do it.
If you need to call one of your close friends or a family member at 2:00 in the morning to come pick you up,
I can guarantee you they will pick you up.
I can guarantee you that they will be thankful that you called them and won't be angry in that you are actually being responsible in that regard. I can guarantee that right then and there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anyways, let's jump over to first, before we get into Four Nations Cup. There was news that broke just shortly before the Four Nations face-off break. And really, there's no freeze right now. There's no trade freeze in the NHL.
Yes.
That said, the conversation now is that Seattle is making Jared McCann available. Now, this is a guy that can kill penalties. He can play down the middle. He can play the wing. He's a guy that is very productive offensively. We've seen that over his career. He had a short stint with the Toronto Maple Leafs, never actually suited up for the Toronto Maple Leafs, but he did have a short stint prior to being made available in the expansion draft. So with all of that in mind, if Jared McCann is truly available, one of the spots the Leafs were rumored to be looking at deepening is their center depth. If you add a guy like Jared McCann, not only does he give you the availability of creating more center depth, but he also gives you that available maybe kind of that openness to shift around your wingers as well. Create more depth overall in your top 9. If you're Brad Treliving right now, knowing that McCann is available in Seattle, there was belief he was looking at Yanni Gourde at one point. Now Yanni Gourde is out long term. Could Jared McCann be the next target for Brad Treliving here?
Oh man, what a way for a Tree to go in and right the wrong that Kyle Dubas made years ago, where instead of protecting, Justin Hall and Alex Kerfoot, you made available Jared McCann, who has more upside than both of those players. And if you're able to bring them back, I can't see how this would be a big win for him in the franchise and one of Kyle Dubas's worst mistakes made as a GM. I mean, as you mentioned, he's got the versatility. He's a center wing type player, 6'1", 185. He's got the size. He's very finesse. He's got that intensity, the drive, the goal scoring abilities. I mean, this is a player that over the last 3 seasons with the Seattle Kraken, he's been very, very productive. And by that, I mean, he's been teetering around 60, 70 points, 40 goals, kind of dipped the last year to 29, but it was kind of a downward year for Seattle, where they didn't have that big of an impact, but that 2022-23 season was one of those years where it was just absolutely amazing where he popped off. And I can't believe Dubas let him walk, because that was a big mistake. And if he's able to come in, obviously it shores up the center depth for the Maple Leafs. It gives them a wing in that top 6, where if you do choose to bump John Tavares down to the third line, I don't think there's going to be any issues with that. But if you do want to have a solid top 6, you got Nyes, Matthews, Marner on one, and then McCann, Tavares, and Nylander on the other. I mean, I don't see how you could get more deep into your top 6 and adding that additional secondary, not necessarily secondary scoring, but another top forward that can alleviate some of that pressure off Matthews, Marner, Nylander. Nyes is looking very well. Bobby McCann, we're going to have to be careful when we say that, if it's Bobby McMahon or or Jared McCann. Sorry, I'm already screwing up right now. But, Bobby McMahon is playing well in that middle 6th row when he was getting those opportunities, especially even when Marner was gone too. He got bumped up to the top line, or even when Nyes was gone, he got bumped up. He looked fantastic. Nyes came back. Both players still look fantastic. So if you have Nyes, McCann, and McMahon, 1, 2, 3 on that left side, that's going to be a great position for you to have. Obviously, you would still like to address that center position. Obviously, Gourde, I feel like Yanni Gourde was definitely one of those targets on Seattle before he went down. Now, it's possible that he could still be added and traded for, but you're running a risk, because if he's going to be out all season and he goes to free agency, you could easily walk and you pay for him just to be on IR and nothing. So it's better to just wait it out and try to go after him in free agency, where the price could be a little bit lower, because I don't think he's going to be worth that $5 million cap hit right now. You could easily try and get him in free agency. But if you're looking at McCann, you could easily afford to give up. You're talking about Nick Robertson, who's wanting a change of scenery. Is that going to be enough? No, but you're probably going to have to throw in a top prospect. You're going to have to throw in that 1st round pick next year. Those are the pieces that you want to try and move on from, because this draft where the Maple Leafs are going to be picking, it's probably not going to be that, franchise altering. It's not going to move the needle anytime soon, because they're basically in win now mode. So if you're able to move him, if you're able to move on a prospect like Fraser Minton for Jared McCann, I will gladly take that, because he's got some upside right now. I believe he's going to be a free agent in 2026-27. So this is a guy that has term remaining. So I'm under the impression that if you move a player for a player with term, giving up a 1st and a top prospect to win now, I don't see any issue with that. That'll be a big win if Tree does do that.
And a pretty good cap hit for that $5 million as well, which is pretty crazy to think about, considering that he could be your third line center, right? Do you remember the debate when Seattle came into the league, who Dubas kept instead of McCann? We were doing this show already.
Oh, yeah.
We were talking about it.
Yeah, it was to either make available McCann or keep Kerfoot and Hall.
Kerfoot and Hall or Jared McCann.
And again, this all came back full circle. You're telling me that Kerfoot was more worth it and Justin Hall to keep than Jared McCann.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy to think. So let's go back.
I was just going to go back for a quick second. When he was with Pittsburgh, obviously, he had a couple 30-point seasons with Pittsburgh. Then there was a combined win in 2018-19 where he got traded from Florida to Pittsburgh. So he was already having decent secondary bottom six scoring production. But now when you give him that opportunity, he was going to move up. And now he's basically a top six forward. And now Seattle's going to ask for a ransom for him because of what he's been able to do over this the last stretch of the last 2-3 seasons.
Yeah, remember at the beginning of the year when Dubas said his biggest mistake was the money he gave to John Tavares?
Yeah.
I think there's probably a solid top 5 mistakes that we could go back and look at. Great, it would be a great piece for the hockey writers at some point.
My thing is, it's not the money that you gave JT because teams were going over 11 million for him. He took less. It's not that you gave him the money. It's the fact that you should have probably signed your RFAs first before signing JT. And I think JT probably would have understood, listen, we want to take care of RFAs first. We'll gladly give you the money too. But again, hindsight, because of the cap hit, because of COVID, because of escrow and everything like that, cap hit or the league cap took a hit. Who could have foresaw that coming? But I agree. Yeah, giving 11 million to JT probably a big risk. But then again, early on in his career as a Maple Leaf, for 10 years of Maple Leaf, he was lights out good. There's no debate about that. And now, with the whole McCann thing, you have a chance to treat or right the wrong and basically rub salt into the wound of Kyle Dubas right now. Because again, I think that was more of a big mistake than giving JT 11 million.
Yeah, I agree. I think had you kept McCann, I think it would have given you that ability to take that next step a little quicker than we've done. Mm-hmm. And that's assuming that the Leafs are going to take a big step in the next season or two, right? Like, yeah. Anyways, regardless, he's available according to reports. The possibility is that the Leafs could be interested at some point on Jared McCann, and if they are, I agree with you. I think you're looking at probably a first-round pick, probably a mid-round pick, maybe a 4th or a 5th as well.
Do it,
and then a top prospect as well. So maybe
also he does have a modified no trade clause, but a 10-team no trade list. So you could easily move him to one of the 21 other teams in this league or 22 teams in this league without telling him, hey, we're going to move you right now.
Yeah, exactly. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but that's one name that keep an eye on as we quickly approach this trade deadline, especially with this little break here that we've got with the Four Nations face-off. With that said, the Leafs closed out the regular, I'm not going to say the regular season, but they closed out their schedule prior
unofficial
to
first half.
Yes, yeah. Their unofficial first half prior to this 2-week break with a lackluster performance in Vancouver where, again, Leafs Nation showed up big. Lots of comments from the team in regards to how Leafs Nation followed them around on their West Coast swing. Hopefully they can start doing that at home in Toronto as well with the lower bowl Phantoms, which we talked about a few weeks back. You can go back and check out that episode as well. And while you're at it, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Stay up to date with all of the latest news around the NHL. But the Four Nations face-off is ready to kick off tonight. Canada will be taking on Sweden. Right now, it's saying that it looks like Sam Bennett and Travis Sanheim are the 2 scratches for Team Canada, which means Mitch Marner will be taking on William Nylander in the first game of the Four Nations face-off. Let's break it down, Peter. What are you looking at for the Four Nations face-off? Who's your favorite going in? Because this is a tough call. I will say right off the top, because of the injuries, I think Finland's got to be the underdog based on their
Mhm.
defensive injuries.
Definitely.
But outside of that, it's a toss up between these other three.
Yeah, I mean when Esa Lindell is your top pairing defender and your go-to on the back end, and he doesn't quite move the needle in terms of being a puck mover. He's more of a stay-at-home kind of guy. You're going to have to rely on UC Saros standing on his head quite a bit and Finland outscoring their problems. They got players that could do that, which is great, but they seem to be the big time underdog right now. But like you said, it could be a toss up between Canada, US, and Sweden. I mean, let's face it, Sweden's got stellar goaltending. Same with the US, where they have Hellebuck, Swayman, Ottinger. They got guys that can basically keep the puck out of the net. And also, yeah, I know it sucks Quinn Hughes isn't going to be there, but Jake Sanderson is a great replacement for him, considering what he's done lately for Ottawa. Canada, I mean, you look at them up front, where you have basically the top three players for this nation, and Crosby, McKinnon, McDavid. That's going to be fun. You got great support in Marner, Point, Stone, Reinhardt. You got guys that can make a significant impact offensively for this team. I think that this is going to be a fun tournament. It's just how much are they going to fall back on this as opposed to like an all-star game? Because how many times can you do this every so often? I don't know how many times they're going to do this, but is it going to be better than what's already for an all-star game? I hope it is, because the last two, I mean, I think they upped it up for Toronto, but I think the all-star games in Vegas and Florida were kind of hit or miss with some of the events that happen. If you're making a big spectacle out of this, you better hit the nail on the head. That's to be determined, because I don't know how well this is going to pan out or how it's going to end. But, the teams look ready and they're going to be competing hard for the trophies. So, yeah, I think if you're looking at a favorite, on paper, I think US probably has the best odds because of the goaltending. Canada's goaltending is not that good. And I'm surprised that Logan Thompson still isn't there. I'm surprised Aiden Hill isn't getting the start over Jordan Bennington. That's who I would have gone with. But Canada's saving grace is their defense. They got great puck movement. They got great guys that can, play a strong two-way game. And they got, some of the best players on the planet up front. So they got that going for them. But, it does come down to goaltending too, right? So U.S. has that edge. But again, Matthews, the Tkachuks, Connor, Jack Hughes, they're lethal up front too. So it's basically anyone's game.
Yeah, I mean, Logan Thompson, the conversation a couple weeks back was that Pete DeBoer didn't like what he saw from him in Vegas. I don't know how much truth there is to that. I'm just strictly going off reports. But if that is truly the case, you didn't like what you saw from him in Vegas. Right now, he's arguably one of the top goaltenders in the league. And just signed a big ticket. Kind of a big mistake for them, not bringing in Logan Thompson.
Absolutely. I mean, their feelings and what they witnessed firsthand aside, for what they saw with Logan Thompson, put that aside. Who's got the better numbers? You look at save percentage. I mean, goals against average. Thompson has 2.33. Trying to find out. Aiden Hill, 2.64. It's not bad. But when you scroll further down, Samuel Montembeault is 3.0. I can't even find Jordan Bennington. Jordan Bennington's 2.89. So Logan Thompson has better numbers over those guys in that category. Save percentage, 921. Definitely higher than all three of those goalies combined. You're telling me that you're going to have your own, personal feelings about how you coach this player than one of the top goaltenders right now. I mean, this is best on best. There's no way in hell that Samuel Montembeault is better than Jordan Bennington. There's no way that or Logan Thompson. There's no way that Jordan Bennington is better than Logan Thompson. Aiden Hill's pretty damn good. He probably would have been still one of the top two goaltenders, but he's still not better than Logan Thompson. So again, this is one of those head-scratching moves where, again, you want best on best. Even in November, Logan Thompson was better than all three of those goalies. Why are you not taking him just based on your, past experience with him?
I'll throw another name in the hat, and obviously this is a name that's been thrown around, but Mackenzie Blackwood,
That too, yeah.
14, 6 and 2 this season, 922 save percentage and a 213 goals against. And sorry, that's just since he's joined Colorado. Overall, he's got
2015 and 5 overall.
Yeah, 2015 and 5 overall with a, what is it, 234?
253 GAA and 917 save percentage.
So still numbers that are better than Montembeault, numbers that are right there with like Bennington and Aiden Hill. So I mean, it is going to be the biggest question mark. That said, you've got Connor McDavid, who's wearing the Canadian jersey for the first time in a best on best since, I want to say, the World Juniors.
Yeah.
Since he suited up for the World Juniors. He played in the World Championships one year.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not considering that a best on best. And at the World Cup of Hockey, he was on Team North America. So he hasn't sported the Canadian jersey in a best on best since the World Juniors. So you're going to have, and there's a number of players for each team that are going to be like that. So
yeah.
I think this is going to be a hell of a tournament. In terms of the Leafs, Mitch Marner is getting an opportunity to play with some of the best players in the game right now. I think it's time to kind of throw a little bit more respect towards Mitch Marner. He's going to get an opportunity to play with McDavid. Mm-hmm. He's among the league's elite now. What's your take on Mitch Marner and this opportunity for him?
I really would have loved to have seen that point Konechny Marner line, like when they dominated that World Championship under John Cooper, because he said that familiarity was there. That was definitely going to be an option. I thought they were fantastic because they had good chemistry, and all three of those players are on the team right now. But when you're playing with Connor McDavid, that's just the perfect opportunity for you right then and there. I mean, you're looking at the top two players in the 2015 draft class. McDavid has 1,053 points. Marner's 710. So they're 1-2 right there from 2015. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Those are the top two players overall. I think this is something that could probably fuel Marner, not just for this tournament, but later on, seeing that competitive. I'm not saying that Marner isn't as competitive as Connor McDavid, but seeing McDavid go above and beyond every single shift. I mean, Marner could definitely keep up with him. And even with a player like Sam Reinhart too, I guess you could probably look at him being the finisher. McDavid definitely has a better shot, but Marner's going to be that playmaker. And if you can dish the puck off and feed off the chemistry that you already play with an elite shooter, you should be able to do that with McDavid and even Reinhart right now. So that's a big opportunity for him. I think it's fantastic. And also you look at the fact that this is a guy that's going to eat a lot of minutes for Canada. He's going to be on power play too, because I mean, let's face it, Marner being on power play one wasn't going to be realistic given the names that we saw. I mean, that's just a lethal top unit, but being on the PK, being on the power play himself, and being able to, find those cross seams, find those open spaces, get those pucks between skates and sticks. Marner has that vision. And if he's able to locate Reinhart and even McDavid, that's going to be a big plus for him.
Yeah, I like that you brought up that, playing with McDavid will kind of fuel that drive a little bit. I think it also pulls away of that complacency that Marner has been rumored to have over the last number of seasons. And obviously this season we've seen a different Marner. Like he's on a mission. He's in a contract year. He wants to hit that century mark for points. So I the complacency is more Leafs Nation kind of trying to drive a wedge between, Marner and his final number on his contract. But, at times there does seem to be a little bit of complacency. In those games where the Leafs just don't show up and you want a guy to come out and steal the game, you want Marner to be that guy. Mm-hmm. So I agree with you. I think, getting to play with a guy like McDavid, he's going to get that opportunity to see just what, a Stanley Cup eligible player is going to play like, his competitive level, that extra gear that he has when he needs to get something done. that willingness to basically go anywhere into the corners and fight for every puck. He's going to see that a little bit more with McDavid as well, and I think that's going to be important for him, not just this season, but beyond this season and into his next contract. I agree with you that I think he's a good name for PP2. There's no chance he was making it on the power play one. No chance.
No chance. And that's no slight to Mitch Marner.
Absolutely not. It's not a criticism on his game. It's how deep this Canadian team is.
And that's the whole thing about best on best. Some players are going to have to take a step back.
And those are the teams that win. Those are the
Exactly.
teams that win when players can buy into the roles that they're giving in a best on best. You can't tell, correct me if I'm wrong, Sidney Crosby's slated for the third line right now.
I think second.
Was he second?
Oh, okay. No. So he is second line, but he's on the wing, and McKinnon is center. And this is per daily faceoff right now. So it's McKinnon, Crosby, and Stone on the wing.
So, and you can't tell me that Crosby's not going to sit there and buy into his role as a winger rather than being your center, right?
Yeah.
It's the greats buy in, they find a way to make it work, and they play their role and they win championships. So it'll be interesting to see how Canada does, outside of goaltending. This is one hell of a lineup, and it's going to be exciting to watch. And again, tonight they play against Sweden and William Nylander. It's going to be a hell of a game. Surely we'll have something about it later this week or into next week, but it'll definitely be a fun one to watch. In terms of Captain Matthews, okay? Captain Matthews will be playing with Jack Hughes on the U.S. squad. First of all, shout out to the U.S. squad who's had Guy Gaudreau there the entire time.
Yeah,
he's been on the ice skating with the team. They have Gaudreau's jersey hung up in the locker room. It's going to be there all tournament long. Mad respect to the U.S. squad for doing what they're doing. This is a guy, Johnny would have been there, no question, had he been around. And he deserves the recognition. So big shout out to them. And I think it's, I was just, today I was actually, I'm going to give you I'm going on a little tangent here, but I was watching a video of Guy Gaudreau just skating around with the boys at practice and getting pictures done in front of the net with some of the U.S. players and all this. And as a dad, it made me think of if I lost my kids, what would kind of keep me going?
Yeah.
Right. And this is the best part about hockey community is that it hasn't let him go. It hasn't let him just.
He hasn't forgotten it.
He hasn't been forgotten, right? He's been brought in. He's been brought in by Torts in Philly. He's been brought in by the Columbus team. He's been brought in by the Calgary Flames. Their family has been absorbed by the extended family that Johnny Gaudreau had in the game.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that to me, I mean, it gave me chills and it gave me goosebumps just thinking about being in that position. And obviously, I would never want to be in that position, but knowing that he's been kind of adopted by the extended family of Johnny Gaudreau, to see him out there skating with the boys, it brought tears to my eyes.
It's great.
But anyways, Auston Matthews is skating with Jack Hughes. I would say that the U.S. squad is my favorite to win the tournament, just based on, head to toe. This team is stacked. Your thoughts on Auston Matthews and what we can see from him in this tournament?
Yeah, I mean, this whole entire U.S. team, a lot of them are familiar because of the NCDP days. I mean, they already got some chemistry. I know it's been years that they played together, but they have that chemistry. I don't think they forgot about their tendencies at all. But at the same time, I mean, when you have as deep of a lineup as you do right now, Auston Matthews, I still think should have been the top line center as opposed to, being the second line one, but playing alongside Jack Hughes and Jake Guentzel, who are very speedy and very crafty wingers themselves, I think is great to see that he's able to keep up and everything like that. Yeah, there you go. I knew something probably happened and I just kept on going. So, yeah, I was just saying that I think Matthews playing alongside two great wingers or speedy players in Jake Guentzel and Hughes is definitely going to complement him. They're very crafty, same like Marner. They're very skilled with the puck, but they could shoot, they could pass, and if they find his Matthews for that one-time opportunity, they're definitely going to pass it off. I still would have probably put him at the top line center over Eichel, but then again, I think you could utilize Eichel maybe a little bit more than Matthews, especially a little bit more in defensive situations. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it doesn't get better than Kyle Connor, Matthews, and Matthew Tkachuk, right? I think the only problem I have with Team USA is they missed the ball for that because of how great all three of those players have been. Where if you need to stack up the lineup, that's probably the best thing to do. And again, not a slight to Jack Eichel, but one of the premier goal scorers right now that's probably on a better pace than Alex Ovechkin, playing alongside with two of the best American wingers in the game right now. That's impressive, and I think that should have been it. But again, Jack Hughes is fantastic. Jake Guentzel is fantastic. Definitely, again, you probably can't complain too much about the top six or even the bottom six because Brady Tkachuk's going to feast on that third line role. I mean, Vincent Trocheck probably best suited for that fourth line role. But then again, if we're thinking best on best, is Vincent Trocheck really one of those better players that were left off the team? I don't know. But yeah, I think that Team USA is definitely the favorite. I said it at the beginning too, based on the depth that they have up front, on the back end, and especially in goal.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, I think you and I can both agree that we're excited to see Matthews play, knowing what he's gone through earlier on in this season. To know that he's healthy enough to be there, to know that he's going to be a big part of this U.S. squad is going to be exciting to watch. As for the Canadians' opponent tonight, we've got Team Sweden, William Nylander. He's wearing an A for this squad, and that's just a testament to what he's done in his career to develop and become that leader. But man, he's having a hell of a year with the Leafs, and now he's going to get to carry that over and wear his nation's colors. What are we expecting from William Nylander here?
Yeah, for all of people out there that thought that, Nylander's not a character guy, he's not a leader and anything like that, he's wearing a letter for his country. I mean, probably a little bit tough on the Maple Leafs right now, but you could see or get the sense of how vocal and how impactful he can be and how much he wants to win just by watching the the NHL face-off series from Amazon Prime. We actually have actual audio of what he said on the bench, and that takes guts to call out the way that your team is playing, especially your line mates and some of the better players too. That takes a lot of guts to call them out and say, hey, you all need to be better. And the fact that he just basically said, that one time when they're going into overtime, he's talking about, we'll get it next year, F that. This is a guy that wants to win, and you could rest assured that he's going to be one of the top point getters for Sweden right now, along with Forsberg, along with Adrian Kempe. Those are like some of the top Swedes out there right now. Pettersson, this is probably a good opportunity. I know we're talking about the Maple Leafs, but this could be a good opportunity for Elias Pettersson to play alongside some of those top tier, left and right wingers. But at the same time, Nylander's just going to absolutely dominate. I mean, we see what he can do with the puck. We've seen his shot. This is a guy that thrives on big moments. He thrives on the big stage. And if Sweden is going to go far, Nylander is definitely going to be one of those key contributors that, puts them forward and makes them a real big contender.
Yeah, no, 1,000%. I think this is a great opportunity for him to continue to develop even more so, grow on what he's done already for the Leafs this season. So the biggest thing will be, not only do these teams get the cup once they win this, the winner gets medals as well. So this is bragging
They're going
rights.
all out.
This is bragging rights within the dressing room. This is not just about the Leafs. I believe the Florida Panthers are the team with the most representatives at the Four Nations tournament. So it'll be interesting to see how hard they're going to go. I believe it was Seth Jarvis that was asked if there's going to be any fights in the Four Nations face-off. He says he doesn't think so.
Only if Aho comes calling.
Only, yeah. But man, you're playing for your country. I think there's going to be some heated moments amongst these four squads.
Well, didn't Nylander say the same thing about Auston Matthews too? And he fights.
He
Maybe
said,
if Auston Matthews comes calling, maybe.
Yeah, he said I told Auston that I'm going to be ready to drop the mitts with him.
There you go.
But all that said, Peter, there's been a lot of conversation about the injuries that have kind of happened leading into this tournament. You know, you're supposed to have the best of the best of the best. Obviously, guys like Pietrangelo went down, Heiskanen went down. So you're not getting maybe the guys that you exactly wanted off the top. You're also missing guys like, you know, Leon Draisaitl, Alex Ovechkin. You know, you name it. There's
going down the list. There's, you know, Nico Hischier. There's Timo Meier. There's Tim Stützle. There's Kaprizov. There's you name it.
There's a ton of names that are missing from this best on best tournament. So my question to you, and this is strictly a conversation that we're having. We haven't put it out there to the social verse. Is this really a best on best tournament?
I have many a conversation outside of here if this is really best on best. And in a way it is. I mean, you do have four of the top nations right now competing against each other. But what happens when you don't have the Draisaitl, you don't have Stützle, you don't have Pastrnak, Natchez, who's tearing it up right now, who's looking really good with Colorado. And again, we go down the list. It doesn't feel like it's a best on best with only four teams. It kind of feels like a mini NHL international version of the Memorial Cup, where it's a quick tournament, you know, winner goes on, other teams have to duke it out kind of thing. But it really doesn't feel like that. It's not even at the caliber of a World Hockey Championship kind of thing, where you do have other teams' best nations and best players. I mean, albeit a lot of them at a different time because, you know, players are still playing in the playoffs. You may not get the best, but you're still getting the ones that agreed to go. I think the best one is obviously the Olympics, and I think the NHL missed a mark previously, the last 2-3 ones, where you could have easily have had Crosby play with McDavid. You could have seen Auston Matthews play and tear it up alongside with a lot of the other top American players right now. Nylander with Sweden, Marner on Canada as well. This really doesn't feel best on best because you could easily have had, I mean, again, you only have a limited amount of time because it's kind of like their all-star break. But not having a Team Czechia, not having a Team Europe, Team Russia, again, it's a little bit of a different situation because of what's unfolding, you know, geopolitically right now. I can understand why the NHL didn't want to do that, but if you did want to make a Team Europe, why not have Draisaitl, Ovechkin, Pastrnak, Natchez, a lot of these guys? If you didn't want to do, you know, a Team Russia, or if you want to try and switch it up as kind of like the Olympic athletes of Russia kind of thing, you didn't want to give them that label. At least do a Team Europe and maybe even a Team U23. Or I don't know. It just kind of feels weird that Draisaitl is basically the top player right now, not getting anything.
He's likely going to win the Rocket Richard this year.
And he's on vacation. Ovi chasing down greatness. I think he could use the break a little bit, but you know he can't turn down best on best.
Yep.
Seeing Kaprizov, I mean, again, he's injured right now, but pre-injury Kaprizov when he was MVP caliber, definitely something you want to see. Again, Pastrnak, he's absolutely fantastic to watch. It's just really... It does suck. It really does that a lot of the top players right now still aren't going. But I mean, there's probably a way around it where you probably could have had maybe a fifth or sixth team. But I guess it's one of those blemishes where maybe you could probably think about that later on. But
So for now, we'll call it a best on some.
Best on some, yeah.
Best on some tournament. Mm-hmm. So you've got the best of the best from some nations. You don't have them all. Yeah. And I agree. I think, it's a best on best in the sense that from the four nations that you have the best that you could get with injuries playing a part and what have you. That said, it's obviously disappointing that you're not going to have guys like Draisaitl there. You're not going to have guys like Pastrnak there. You're not going to have guys like Ovechkin there. And really knowing what we know about the IIHF and with the Olympics coming up, you're not going to see Ovechkin in a Russian jersey again playing against the best players in the NHL.
It's unfortunate, but we all know why.
Yeah. So I agree with you. I think there needs to be they need to find some ways around it and find a way to get to that best on best again. Obviously with the Olympics coming, I mean, that's part of that conversation, but it's certainly, I wouldn't say it's a best on, like I said, it's a best on some. It's a best on some tournament.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to describe it. Outside of that, it's going to be exciting hockey. We're all excited to watch it. See Marner wear that Canadian jersey again. See Auston Matthews don the USA. William Nylander carry his 33 goals this season into a tournament where he gets to represent his country. I think that's going to be important as well. All in all, it's going to be a fun tournament. It starts tonight. It kicks off with the Canadians taking on the Swedes. Obviously, as I mentioned, Sam Bennett, Travis Sanheim will be the healthy scratches for the Canadian squad tonight. Outside of that, it was a quiet week, Peter. It was a quiet week.
Very quiet.
Yeah. Before we close it out here, is there anything else you wanted to quickly add?
No. I mean, again, like you said, quiet week. Really don't have anything else to add on top of the fact that this is the most best on best that we have had in some time. So let's just savor it. Let's enjoy it. And then let's hope that the Olympics, when they come around next year, it's going to be even better.
Well, before we close out here, just a quick word from the fine folks over at DraftKings. With the tournament coming, make sure you jump over on DraftKings and get your bets in. This NHL season has been as predictable as a puck rolling on its edge. So not very predictable. No one knows where it's going. But that just means there's time for your favorite team to figure things out and games left for you to get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your bet. And if you are new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas. 21 plus, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. NHL and the NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. NHL team marks are the property of the NHL and its teams. Copyright NHL 2025. All rights are reserved. Well, we have no Leafs for a couple weeks, but we will still be on here, probably gabbing about whatever's going on at the Four Nations face off. Outside of that, though, um, outside of that, it's having trouble loading our closeout music here, so we're gonna have to just do. Anyways, it's been
I was about to
it's
say, if you want, I found some interesting news right now regarding Noah Dobson, how he's changing agents
I saw
to
that
Judd Moldauer and Olivier Fortier
at
from
Wasserman.
Wasserman. And
Wasserman's.
continue.
I was just gonna say Wasserman's reeling in the top athletes right
Big
now.
names. Yeah.
Big
And
names.
I saw something interesting about how there was an extension in place with Brock Nelson and maybe Noah Dobson was made available. I can't really, I don't know. I saw that from a source. I really don't know how trustworthy or reliable it is. I believe it was from RG Media. I don't know like how credible it is, but if that is the case, and you're willing to re-extend or extend Brock Nelson and move Noah Dobson, that is a big mistake on Lou Lamoriello's part. Just
That
saying.
would be a huge mistake, but it'd be a huge pickup for whoever got Noah Dobson.
And if you're able to fleece him like you did with Colorado and Devin Tays,
Yeah.
who knows what can happen? I mean, you could be getting in a really solid defendant or puck moving defender on your team. I mean, this is the guy that's just like, I believe he had 70 points about a season or two ago.
Yeah.
Worth taking him, worth giving up a first, worth giving up a top prospect. I don't care.
Stay close to that name. Stay close to Jared McCann, and stay close to the Four Nations face-off as it kicks off again tonight. First time ever we're going to see this 4-team tournament through the NHL. Until next week when we hit episode 190. Crazy to think 190.
Almost there. Almost there at
all-
200.
Almost at 200. But that's all we got here at the Hockey Podcast Network's Sticks in the Six podcast, episode 189. Like I said, no music, no outro. That's all we got. We're going to cut it short right there. Thanks for tuning in this week.